How's it going, Mathaholics? Once we get to 150 subscribers, we're going to give away 3 free Cane's gift cards. If you like chicken as much as I do, just hit that subscribe button and hopefully you get some free chicken. Alright, this is one of those times where I actually feel this is a very important concept because I can guarantee you, however many Cane's chicken fingers you want to bet, that you're going to need this for however long you have to take a math class. So if you have to take math for 10 more years, then you're going to need this for 10 more years, basically. So I just recommend you pay attention now so you understand it now as opposed to struggling with it later. So right here, I have a little method of remembering how to do this until it's second nature. We have number being multiplied, and then a little bit above it and to the right, it says how many times we multiply that number. Now, that makes zero sense, so I'm going to explain it a little bit. Here we have a number 2. Okay, and we see that it's in this format over here. So here, that means that the number 2 is the number being multiplied. Okay, and then the little 2 at the top tells us how many times we multiply that number. So let's see. One thing that I always want you to remember is you're going to need to write down a number 1. Whenever you multiply something by 1, it does not affect the outcome, but I will tell you that writing this number 1 will make it a lot easier for you when we start doing negative numbers. So we're going to write down that number 1. And then it says number being multiplied. That's right over here. Okay, I'm going to change the color for us. That's just 1 times 2 because that's the number being multiplied. And then we look up here and it says how many times we multiply that number. Look at the top right here. We multiply that number 2 times. Now let me tell you, that does not mean we write that 2 down 2 more times. No, because that would be multiplying the 2 3 different times. So all we have to do is write that number 2 down in order to have it multiplied twice. Okay? Very simple. 1 times 2 times 2 equals 4. And that's the answer. Now we're going to do the exact same thing over here. This is called 3 squared. Whenever you see a number raised to the number 2, that's going to be called squared, or to the second power. Either way is correct, but I figured you should know that. Now 3 squared, how do we do that? We always write down the number 1, and then number being multiplied. Okay, what's the number being multiplied? The 3. How many times we multiply that number? Up here it's the number 2, so we just multiply it twice. 3 times 3. That's 2 different times that we're multiplying that 3. 1 times 3 times 3 equals 9. Alright, pretty simple, and that's all you have to do. If it were, let's say, 2 to a 3 up here, we would do the same thing. That would be 1 times 2 times 2 times 2, which gives us 8. And then we could do this for literally any number that you can think of. Alright, so now that we know that, what else can we do? Because it's math. You know, that was pretty simple, but for whatever reason, math is never meant for us to understand it easily. So there's got to be something else that we have to do. And unfortunately, you would be correct, but I'm also going to tell you that this other part is also really easy. Let's say that instead of 2 to the second power, it was to the negative 2. And that does not look too good there, so I'm going to just completely rewrite it. 2 to negative 2, and then this 3 is going to be 3 to the negative second power as well. What is the first thing that we did in both cases, or in all 3 cases I should say? We always wrote down that number 1 first, because we're multiplying by 1. Okay, and then what do we know? Number being multiplied. In this case, whenever we see something raised to the negative power, we are not just going to write that number 2 right over here and call it a day. We can't do that. I'm going to show you what we do. So we write down that number 1, just how we did in the previous examples. I'm just going to write it over here. And then, do you see, I'm sure you, well, not anymore because I deleted it, but do you see this little minus here to the negative 2? We don't like that. It's making the problem a little more confusing for us. So what do we do with things we don't like? We rewrite them to make it easier. So I'm going to take that little minus or negative sign. I'm going to move it over underneath that 1. And now it's a little small, doesn't really fit in, so I'm just going to expand it. And that's pretty ugly, so I'm going to just completely make a new one. Make it green. Okay? And then here we also know that we need to do something about this too. So we're going to put it in the denominator. Okay? And then this 2 up here, we're just going to leave it how it is. So now all we have to do is multiply. 1 is just going to be 1, and then 2 squared, we already know that's 4. And that's the answer right there. So that's pretty much all we have to do. Let's try it again with this problem down here. I'm going to do another example just so that I make sure that we all completely understand. What is the first thing we do when we're doing any exponent? Multiply by 1. Okay. And then what do we do with this little minus thing that's bothering us? We move it and we make it into a fraction. So now we can delete that. And a good way of thinking about it is whatever's left, just write it in the denominator. That's just going to be 3 to the second power, 3 squared, because whatever's left, we put it in the denominator. We simplify this. 1 is just 1. 3 squared is 9. And that's the final answer. That is the easiest way, in my opinion, of doing this. And just because I feel like doing one more to make sure we understand it, I'm going to. I'm just going to pick random numbers. 4 to the negative second power. You know, I'm tired of doing these 2's just so we can see that it's possible with other numbers. How do we solve this? Very simple. We write down that 1 first. We get rid of this little minus sign that we don't like by putting it underneath the 1 to turn this into a fraction. And now whatever's left here, we put it in the denominator. That's going to be 4 to the third. And then just to move this over so we have more room, I'm going to write it down over here. 1 is just 1. 4 to the third, that's 4 times 4 times 4, which I believe is 64, but I don't want to be wrong and put that on here. Yes, it is. And that's it. So I hope that really makes a lot of sense to you. And if not, then leave me a comment down below or send me an email. Thank you.